Revenge of the Vampire. Now this is one of my personal favourites of this series. Count Heydrich, vampire, is back from the dead. A half-forgotten evil has arisen from the grave to stalk the old world in search of fresh blood and new victims to enslave. Count Rainier Heydrich, undead vampire lord, is ancient beyond the reckoning of mortals. This time, however, there is someone on his trail, a brave hero who is determined that he shall not succeed in his evil plans. That someone is you. Right, there's no way I could continue doing that voice for long. How do professional voice actors do that? Oh yes, training! Alright, Revenge of the Vampire is by Keith Morton with illustrations by Morton McKenna. That explains why I like this book so much, or rather the artwork specifically, because it's done by the same person who did the last book that I reviewed, which was of course The Legend of Zagor. Right, I really need to look this person's up at some point. I've also got to check over some of the other books I've got and see if he's done any of the others. Now, in this case, Revenge of the Vampire, as the blurb on the back said, you have to defeat Count Rainier Heydrich, which looks like this fairly stereotypical Dracula knockoff, but, you know, we won't hold that against him. We have the standard skill, standard look, faith, and magic. Let's just take a look at faith, because that's the unique one. Roll one die, add 3 to this number, and enter the total. It will be between 4 and 9 in the faith box on your adventure sheet. Your faith score indicates your purity of heart and belief in the forces of goodness. A high faith score may enable you to force some evil creatures to flee from you when they sense your faith and valour, but it also means that they are more likely to notice you and react to you in a hostile way. You will learn more about the importance of faith as you make your way through this adventure. Go on, let's get it out of our systems. You gotta have faith, faith, faith. And any more than that, we'll probably get a copyright block by YouTube. Never mind. We've got the standard stuff about battles, fighting more than one creature, testing your skill, and so on. Spot skill, restoring stuff. Ooh, the Grim Reaper makes a cameo. You know, is it me or does it look like he's kind of riding an invisible motorbike? You know, that's where the handlebar would be. We have... oh, the facial recognition is actually kicking in as well. It recognises the face of the beautiful vampire woman. The special hazards, curses, plagues and poisons. You've got somebody creeping through a doorway here. The artwork is already going into quite a nice bit of Hammer horror type stuff already. And then we've got a fairly standard adventure sheet, but we get blood points as well. Don't recall seeing anything about blood points in there, although that'll probably come into play later on. You've got background stuff here. Now, one of the things I really like about this particular book, when it starts off, you're actually in an area that seems to be absolutely littered with monasteries. You're literally going from one monastery to another for a while. Let's just see. There's little call for the services of a warrior at this time of year in the town of Dumport. The eastern coastline of the old world has been all too peaceful for some months. The people there grow fat and lazy, and they're not your type of folk at all. Bored and restless, you sit in a tavern in a miserable little village outside the town, wondering whether to return to Alansia or to seek more interesting and dangerous lands in the old world. Then your eyes turn as everyone else do to an old man who's been helped to a table beside a crackling log fire. He is tall, thin and stooped, with a livid scar running down his neck, and his hands shake a little as he puts a blackthorn stick down beside the wooden chair into which he lowers himself painfully. He doesn't take off his heavy brown cloak, and even next to the fire he seems cold. As his face glows in reflective light, you see that his eyes are opaque even, and milky. The old man is blind. He seems to be entirely alone, for he was helped to his seat by the landlord's son, and now no one sits with him. In the tavern, a couple of shifty-eyed rat-faced men, evil-looking sorts, are already gazing at him, and you guess they see him as a soft target. He may well end up in a back alley with a knife in his back if they get their way. Scowling at them so that they back away like the cowards they are, you walk over with the last of your meal and sit down beside him. He is glad of your company and happy to talk to you. After you have introduced yourself, he says his name is Henrik van der Termelin, from Marazitstia, as if his accent didn't give that away. I'm assuming Germanic type sounding names in this particular regard, but there you go. He's on his way to visit a friend, a fellow scholar in one of the monasteries which thronged the shores of Lake Libra. It'll be good to see old Seaworth again. Ha ha ha, you're blind. Although I wish the matter concerning us was not so evil and time not so short. He falls quiet and sips his ale. You ask him why he's travelling alone in these rough lands. I was not alone until yesterday, he says quietly, but then Otto, my old friend and servant, could not wake from his bed. His body was cold and his face frozen into a terrible scream. His hands fidget as if he was running them over his old friend's face again. He was murdered, poisoned. Clearly my enemy does not want me to reach my destination. Which makes you wonder why he didn't kill you as well. For a moment you consider the possibility that he might be mad, but he hasn't far to go and you feel sorry for him, so you offer to accompany him to the safety of the monastery. His face breaks into a smile. You're a good friend, I think, he says. I will be glad of your company, and I am tired and I need to sleep now. However, I shall see you here in the morning. Though you have not asked, I have a little gold with me, and you will be rewarded for your kindness. Before you can protest, he gets up and shuffles towards the bedrooms of the tavern, his stick tapping against the wall. You finish your supper and turn in yourself, rather. In the morning, there is no sign of Henrik at breakfast, so you go to his room. You knock twice on his door, but there's no reply. Uneasily, you open the door, and entering, you are appalled at what you see. The old man has been killed. A heavy-bladed knife protrudes from his crumpled corpse, lying on the blood-soaked bed. Horrified, you reel away, and your foot catches on a small wooden box sticking out from under the bed. As you tip over, the lid falls over, and some papers and gold pieces fall onto the floor. You pick up the papers and look at them. They are notes addressed to Seaworth, and though you don't mean to pry, you can't help glancing through them. Much of what is written here makes little sense to you, but it is clear that Henrik has been hunting an evil fugitive from Montavania, whose name is Count Rainier Heydrich. Henrik documents his terrible life and his eventual slaying. The man was a monster. Henrik tells of the murders of hundreds of peasants by impaling, the draining of their blood, and much worse. Then your eyes take in the following words. Although Heydrich was slain, he could not be destroyed forever. Somewhere his life force is contained in a magical artifact which will protect him. Although I have not yet learned what this is, I do know that destroying it will be vital. Otherwise the vampire will be invulnerable. He longs for revenge after he was vanquished in Montavania. Now he can become far stronger than ever he was in that wretched land. You are stunned. Henrik was a vampire hunter, it seems. The last of these notes begs Seaworth to research the soul jewel and discover its nature. There must be copies of the letters sent to Henrik by the scholar monk if the latter replied. Henrik doesn't have the letters with him. What should you do now? Henrik is past human aid, and you are angry at the cowardly murderers who slew a helpless blind man. But you do not know who they are, and you can't find them and bring them to justice. All you can do now is take these papers to Seaworth and hope that Henrik's research will come to fruition. A vampire, the most feared of all the undead, a leecher of life and blood, an appalling evil. Yes, you will take Henrik's letters to the monk. That at least you can do. You hesitate as you look at the gold on the floor. If you leave it, in all likelihood the thieves of the tavern will soon take it. You have a choice at the start of your adventure. If you want to leave here at once and head for Lake Libra, turn to paragraph 1. If you decide to take the gold, turn to paragraph 51. Now that is fairly unique for this kind of book, for you to actually have the background information give you choices straight off. So let's just take a look at the rest of the book now. We have a map of the area. Okay, so this is where you're starting off from. And, well, I won't spoil it for you. I won't tell you exactly what's going to happen, but you're basically going to be going north. Okay, so let's just take a look at everything else here. We have the Ghoul Monk. More of McKenna's brilliant artwork. There is actually a piece of artwork that got censored somewhat, which made it into the book but was censored. We have Igor. We all know Igor. I don't think we've ever seen Igor look like this. Again, a left-handed. McKenna seems to draw a lot of his characters left-handed. You know, warriors that use their weapons left-handed, which is a rarity, because that said, he might just be holding it left-handed for effect, because the scabbard is actually on his left-hand side, whereas if he was actually fighting left-handed, the scabbard would be on the other side. So it might just be that he's picked it up, put it down somewhere, and then picked it up left-handed again, but who knows. Just hidden away in the coffin there is the face of the Count, who will be running away, I think, at some point. But yeah, some of the artwork did get censored. We've got this kind of ghost bat type thing, but it's still in. It just got edited slightly in order to get in. We'll discuss that more when we actually get there. Here we have a rather fat looking person here, of course. I was never sure when I was a kid if that was supposed to be a monocle or some sort of spoon. It is clearly a monocle. I was just obviously not paying too much attention for some reason. But again, the artwork is deliciously scrumptious. We have a werewolf. A werewolf? Werewolf! Wolf? Where? 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 Wolf? Where? Oh, werewolf. There you go. And again, bloody gorgeous. We have a pipe smoker. Don't smoke, kids, it's bad for you. I'll tell you one thing, I'm going to have to look at McKenna's artwork at some point and see. Hopefully he's still alive, and hopefully still still doing art, and hopefully being very successful, because if he hasn't been a successful artist, then that's going to be a truly horrible misrepresentation. Well, a truly wasted bit of potential, I think, more rather than anything else. Some sort of rock eel pack. The Count is running away into his coach, and that is a lovely shot. I can't compliment the artwork enough here. Right, this is the edited picture. Now what basically happened, I didn't realise this was edited until I actually found out about this just a few days ago. What they've done is they have removed two things. They've removed some of the blood, because apparently the woman in the foreground had too much blood running down her neck and into her cleavage, as was the case there. They've also covered up some of her cleavage because, as you'll notice, around this bit of the brassiere it's quite elaborate. Okay, the amount of detail there. This was also quite elaborate on the original picture. It's quite a bit of a lacy number, and there was blood basically going down into the cleavage, and apparently it was considered for a horror book to be a bit too much. So they didn't get the artist to edit it, it was just the editor at the time apparently spent some time with a bit of Tipex, of all things. Not sure how much truth there is to that, but the original edited version can be seen online and looks more, it just looks more in keeping with the horror theme, to be honest, when you see the unedited version. But that's one of those silly things that always happens. 3 witches, and one of them has managed to turn themselves into stone. You actually end up having to help one or the other of them betray the other, and I don't think it actually matters which one you help, because it's pretty much the same thing. It's just different ways of betraying the other, and you know, then being betrayed yourself by one. But you know, whichever one you help, you will be taking out the other, then you'll be betrayed by the other. But it reads differently as I recall. Monsters covered in ooze in some sort of chambers. Giant basilisk, as you can tell by the name there. I don't think that guy is going to survive that for some reason. Whatever this stone is, I don't like all the corpses that are around it. The Grim Reaper is showing up again. Actually, it's called the Skeletal Strangler. As you can tell, the arm is reaching out as if out of the paper to actually strangle you. That's very nice positioning work by the artist. A nightmare horse. You can tell, if this was in colour, you can bet those eyes would be glowing red. Oh yes, the proto-zombie. This guy's artwork, as I've said on a previous review, is so memorable and so good that every time you turn the page to see it, the memories of seeing the artwork originally just come straight back to you. I think we're actually just about to turn the page and see one of my favourites. No, it'll be one of the later pages then. This guy is actually an ally of yours. Despite appearances, he's actually in rather poor health because he tends to spend a lot of time coughing. This is one of my favourites of this particular novel. Okay, this is the Grand Revenant, which is not a zombie, it's not a ghoul, it's something else altogether. Now, a Revenant was actually a Western European folklore being which had certain similarities to the Eastern European vampire tales. At some point, when the Eastern European vampire tales came across, they sort of merged into the Revenant stories and became the vampire beings we know today. Although there are now thousands of variations of vampire stories. We have this corpse creature again, I think. We have this rather beautiful looking ethereal crusader type person. Looks like elf ears and a crusader cross. Again, a left-handed swordsman. I'm convinced at this point that McKenna must be a lefty himself. We have this mad scholar who's actually one of the bad guys, but you can convince him to give you health potions and whatnot. Oh, that's all the fatal lays on there. Like an absolutely gorgeous girl. I'm wondering how much Hammer horror artwork he might have been looking over when he actually drew these pictures. Now that's a memorable picture in its own right. That wand there is covered in acid, as I recall. And we have this rather beautiful girl here. She might be an innocent victim, or she might just be one of the vampires themselves. You have no way of knowing until you actually try to interact. And there he is himself, Reinier Heydrich, looking rather mightily peeved. And his black cloak is managing to cover up a good deal of his body, which some might say is a cheap way of not drawing the rest of him, but at the same time it also serves to show just how black his cloak is, just how dark his evil is. Oh, we've got a standard zombie, but this particular zombie has no mouth. We have a death imp, dual-wielding daggers. God knows where they came up with that idea from. And that was it. That was the last of the artwork. So, what can I say about this particular story? I'm loving it. It was by far, out of all the books I have from the Fighting Fantasy series, my absolute favourite. Now, I'm not much of a horror fan, to be brutally honest. Okay, horror movies have never been my thing. But, when all's said and done, this book used those tropes very, very nicely to create its own thing. The artwork, as always by McKenna, is bloody gorgeous. Have I said that enough at this point? I don't care. I'll say it again. It's bloody gorgeous. I'm going to be doing whatever I can to research his work in future. It's a good story. It's got excellent gameplay. Gorgeous art, really suits the mood perfectly. I can't recommend it enough. And the only problem is if they ever decided to re-release this one, from what I've seen of the new game books that have came out, one which is just a reprint of the Warlock of Fight Up Mountain, and the other 5 are all originals as far as I can tell, all of the artwork in that is completely new. So if somebody was to re-release this now, we'd lose McKenna's art, and we'd have the rather bland looking artworks from the new books, which I'll cover in more detail in those particular reviews. But as for now, this has possibly been the longest review session I've done of any of these books, simply because of the amount of good quality artwork to look at, and of course the fact that I've done a good bit of reading from it. But yes, I can hardly recommend this to any and all creatures of the night. Good night.